Hey, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 7 of Advanced Programming with Java here at Portland State University. We're getting on towards the end. This is the second to last class. It is the last sort of lecture like this. Next week will be the final exam. Here's what's on the agenda for tonight. So first off, as always, we'll start out with Prime Minister's questions. I'm curious to hear how things are going on Project 5. They're working with Android. Then I'll talk about the final exam, always important to know what to expect there. But then we'll spend the vast majority of time tonight talking about Android and doing some Android development. What I thought I would do is implement a simple calculator application that I think will give us some more experience working with the Android API, working with Android Studio to develop an application. And what I hope to expose you to then are the kinds of things that you'll need to do in your project to develop your own application. Along the way, we're gonna pass through a bunch of things. I made a big old checklist so that I don't forget, and we'll explore it together. I have to warn you in advance that compared to like the stuff in projects 1, 2, 3, and 1 through 4, I'm not as expert in Android, so you might see me stumble in a couple of places and have to go back to the documentation a lot. Nothing wrong with that. It's all part of the experience, but bear with me if maybe get down a rabbit hole or if there's something that I need to look at. So let's start off with some Prime Minister's questions. What can I tell you? What would you like to know about where we are in the course right now? How are things going with your Android projects? Please feel free to raise your hand or just to raise your hand or to ask something in chat. I did get a DM. So let's see here. Just to confirm, I say the website says Project 5 is due next Wednesday before class. But I thought I remembered you mentioning last lecture that it wasn't due until next Friday. I probably misheard, just wanted to confirm. Actually, no, thanks for asking about that because stuff has kind of come fast and furious. So last week I extended the Project 4 deadline until Friday. With Project 5, it's still due on Wednesday, but because it's the end of the term, you can't go much beyond Wednesday. So if you have late days to use, or if hey, if you just need some extra time, we'll figure out what it means for you. Please get please get things in as close to Wednesday as possible. So I will. I think what I said last week is that I'll commit to grading any project that comes in before 5 p.m. on Friday. Afterwards, though, I've got a lot of grading to do. I grade the Android projects. The graders will be busy with grading the final exam, and we'll try our best to get everything graded by when the letter grades are due, which I think is end of the day on Monday. I can't guarantee it, or rather, I reserve the right to say, nope, sorry, it's Monday at noon. I can't take any more. I can't take any more project submissions. So I guess what I will say is that if you aren't able to submit it, let me know. Reach out to me on Slack. Try to give me an early indication so that I can plan my time accordingly, and so that you and I then can plan what to expect. You'll raise their hands. Andrew, what's up?
I remember the question I had earlier during office hours, which was one sort of strange idea that I think ultimately would actually probably be best not to follow, but would be sort of an interesting way of doing things, I thought, was having possibly most of the Android development be in implementing a way to make basically a UI for creating the like command line stuff that we send to the rest, right? And you put in various options, and then it's like, okay, you want the dash print, so we put in that, and then have like a translator make that into a string and then send it over. The problem with that is it's probably a lot of unnecessary work, and it would be more elegant to actually be integrated. But it was an idea I thought of, and I wondered if that was at all sensible.
You know, and actually, if we did this in the real world, that's probably what you do, right? You know, well, I mean, I guess there are some apps, probably many apps that sort of keep all their data locally there on the phone. But you know, let's face it, what you really want to be able to do is interact with information that's in the cloud that is remote from the device. That being said, we have 2 weeks to do this project, and Project 4 was really rough, and so I wanted to make sure then that what ultimately that you all can get out of this project is experience with Android and bound it in a way that you can actually accomplish something, feel good about it. And so then, you know, hey, maybe in a future version of this course, or if I can sort of, you know, figure out maybe how to convey the Android stuff more effectively so that, you know, a weekend everybody's ready to like, you know, dig in even deeper, great, but not this time. And so actually, please make sure that your app does not rely on Jetty running and some other process. I'm not going to grade it that way. And then, you know, when I see that, hey, nothing works because Jetty's not running, then that will impact your grade. So,
Right.
you know, just for this one, there is no web service involved, but you've got, you know, basically everything from your Project 3, I guess, and plus the searching that was added in Project 4.
Wasn't actually talking about using Jetty. I was actually
Uh,
talking about using like the main stuff that we've developed so far as sort of as it is with almost no changes, and just use like a translator between the app compiling options and like a command line and then sending it
uh,
to that, and having the persistent appointment book storage be inside, you know, the client side. So it's like the app side and
yep.
the client side.
You
Um,
could do that. You wouldn't want to invoke your main method directly though, because if it calls system.exit one, you know, system exit or whatever, then your app's going to crash. So
right.
there might be some changes that you make. So I recommend then. Plus will be, you know, have to formulate your command line, send it to your main method, parse the command line.
Yeah.
Seems like, you know, an extra step that really isn't necessary and probably adds
Yeah.
complexity in which bugs could lurk.
Yeah. That's
So
why I was saying it would probably be. I thought about it, then I thought better of it, but I thought I would ask about it.
yeah, it's a good question. I'm glad you're, you know, thinking creatively about how to approach your project. Fine.
Mhm.
That it? You also have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the overall almost well kind of complexity and beauty of the app. I want to make it look nice, but I also am curious as far as like an MVP for looks. Is looks going to be the biggest thing, or is it really just heavy on functionality?
You know, functionality is essential, and ultimately that's what I'll be assessing. I believe there's one test case which is, you know, something called like usability or something, mainly so that if, you know, if there's someone's project where like I have to, you know, spend time trying to figure out how to use it, you know, I want to. You probably heard that slap, right? It's just like, you know, I want to be able to say, hey, you know, your workflow didn't make any sense to me, or whatever. So I can take a little points off, but you know, fundamentally, what I'll be exercising is the ability to, you know, create appointments, search for appointments, pretty print appointments, you know, get the help, make sure things get, you know, resized okay when you move the device, all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Uh, by pretty print, do you mean just displaying it in a nice way?
Yes, ultimately,
Okay.
and you know, so yeah, if you want to, now it's perfectly okay just to then have like readable text, which is your pretty print format. That is totally cool. I think for a lot of people that'll be, you know, that's plenty good. But if you want to explore other ways of rendering an appointment book, you're totally free to do that also. So far, what have been people's experiences with Android? You know, there's been some good conversation on Slack. We saw in office hours that, you know, some people have, you know, figured out how to use activities and buttons and widgets and everything like that. How are people finding it? Is it fun? Is it like a big pain in the butt? Are people like, oh my god, this is worse than Project 4? It's,
Well, at least in my experience, as we went over in the office hours, I had a lot of difficulty trying to get it to do anything after just starting it up. But it was interesting to be able to run it on my phone. When I get back into it after this lecture, I'm definitely going to try to use that more often than the emulator, because especially I found that using the phone directly, I think speeds up debugging, because when using an emulator, it seems like it can sometimes stall before it gets to the next line.
Yeah.
So for anyone who has an Android phone, I'd recommend looking into it. It wasn't that difficult, actually. You basically just plug it in and it should be able to show up as long as you turn on USB debugging on your phone, which is very simple. Just look it up online. It should work. And it's also neat to be able to actually use it with your hands instead of clicking everywhere with a mouse, because touch interfaces aren't really designed very well for that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into it, hopefully with a much better understanding after I look at the things that I forgot to do, which was Android fundamentals and Android UI development. Hoping that I can figure that all out and get things done a lot sooner than for assignment 4.
Cool. What other experiences do people have, and how have they found Android development?
I know for me, I really like this kind of coding and, making apps and then making an interface work with code behind it. So this is my favorite project probably ever for
Yeah,
school. So
excellent.
yeah. And it's also kind of, I've played around a little bit with some, like Unreal. And I think it's kind of similar to that in that there's a giant code base there that you're doing a lot of Googling to learn how to use it. And so I'm interested to see how I can, translate this into other types of frameworks or whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I've done a fair amount, actually. I'm working on, in another class, I'm working on an iOS app. And I was surprised by how much of it was similar to coding in an iOS app. They just have their own proprietary things to feel special, but yeah, so similar.
I would
Comments? Go ahead.
add it is similar, but at the same time, the structure of project is a little bit different. Where in iOS you have a storyboards that kind of similar to what we have here with activity, but the way you link them, it's a little bit more complicated than in iOS. So there is differences in architecture and approach to development itself.
Cool. Yeah, some comments came in here on the chat too. It's more useful to integrate code with UI instead of the CLI. So it's going like Flappy Bird. Yeah, more compelling because you actually get to see the results of your work. Just like, oh, look, our unit test fast. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I like Madison's comparison with React. Yeah, nice. Okay, good. And that's my intent here. You've already demonstrated that you can write Java code, and so now it's about understanding how to work with UI widgets, about just doing something different than most of you have done before. But I will echo that comment about the learning curve. There's a lot. And fragments. Yeah. And so then we'll talk about how to deal with that shortly. Anything else people like to add for Android? Anything else for Prime Minister's questions before we start talking about the final exam? Okay. So, highlights for the final exam. So it is next week during class. It'll start promptly at 5:30. It will be administered via D2L. And expect that it will take 2.5 hours. I also have some final thoughts I want to share with you. So it will not be as long as a normal lecture, but it won't be just like take the exam in 45 minutes and you're done. So please plan your evening accordingly. Make sure that you have sufficient sustenance, that you've had a good dinner or snacked or whatever. The final exam is in 2 parts. The first part is a written part that is done individually. Let's see here. The whole thing is worth 12 points. And so then you can think of the final exam as being about 2 quizzes put together. So I believe it's 6 short answer questions. Any topics that we've covered in the course are fair game for it, and so it is open book, open notes, which, since we're all remote, means the following: you can use any of the lecture notes that are posted here on the website. So any of these PDFs, feel free to reference those electronically, or if you print them out, use them too, during the final exam. However, no other content from the internet can be used. So this means you can't look at Stack Overflow, you can't look things up in the API documentation, certainly can't electronically communicate with anybody, whether in their class or not, to get your answers there. So please just reference the PDFs that are here on the page. That's the first portion of the final exam. We'll have that. That will be about 45 minutes, an hour, or something like that. Probably like 50 minutes. Question. So will the questions be more difficult than the normal quizzes? If so, only slightly. It's a little bit more integrative, and so then I think the thing about the quizzes is that they're sort of meant to be taken at a point in time. So, like for instance, the quizzes about the core APIs and stuff. You didn't know a lot about Java back in week 3. Well, now you do, and so then I think, yes, in comparison, it might be a little bit more difficult, but the intent is that as you progress through the course, you know more things, and so then it might have been more difficult for your week 3 self, but now here you are in week 8, and you should be old hat at this stuff. We'll see. But I will say that the answers to all the questions can be found in the lecture notes. There isn't anything that you'll need to rely on. The second part of the final exam is a group activity. The group activity, though, does not involve coding. So this is not mob programming. This is not pair programming. This is something different. And so we'll break out into breakout rooms, and let's see, your groups, if I don't remember, 4, 5, 6 people or something like that, will work together to respond to an interesting question. I'll say that much. It's not something you can really prepare for. I'm really wanted to be one last exercise in critical thinking, in taking a difficult problem, breaking it down, and working with others to come up with an interesting result. So again, final exam next week during class. Plan for 2.5 hours of total content, and in the middle, between the 2 parts, I will say some concluding thoughts. It begins with an individual section, which is short answer questions like the quizzes. It's open book, open notes, no internet though, and so you can get yourselves the PDFs, but nothing else, please. Then I'll say a few closing words. Then we'll have a small group project. We'll divide in breakout rooms, have small groups who talk about the second part of the final exam. It will not involve coding. You'll merely be collaborating to answer an interesting question. And both of those combined are worth 12 points of your total grade. So if in the next week you're thinking, how should I allocate my time? Remember that the Android assignment is worth more than 12 points. So if you're going to choose between where you put in your time or how you invest your time, probably put a little bit more into making sure that your Android project is awesome. But you really but you obviously do need to study for the final exam. Any questions about the final exam that I can answer? Bennett, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so with it sounds like not, but with the group activity, is there anything we should do to prepare? Just really, it's meant to be just on the fly.
Nope. Yeah, make sure that your brain is working. Cool. So get a good night's sleep, have a good dinner. Wait until after to start drinking. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Did I say the final exam starts at 5:30 sharp? I did, yes. So that's when it'll open in D2L. And that's when, please join the class Zoom. for any last minute announcements or other things that I've got going on. Certainly, that's where we'll do the group portion and my last lecture, so, which isn't much of a lecture. We need to stay in Zoom during the first part of the exam. If anybody asks a question and that I inform the entire class of the answer of, it'll be via Zoom. So I'd advise you to, just in case there's anything in real time that needs to be communicated. But technically, you could just be there on D2L, but certainly the second part of the exam will require your participation. Any questions for the final exam? Yes. Okay. We're going to spend the rest of our time together tonight building out our Android project. Oh, sorry. Approximately how long does part 2 take? Historically speaking, I'd say anywhere between 45 and 90 minutes. It depends on the group and how efficiently the group works together and answers the question. So that's why I say the whole thing, 2.5 hours. Okay. So then, let's go over to Android Studio. So, as you've all discovered, working with developing Android applications is different, right? You've got a different tool to work with. You've got different libraries to leverage, and you've got. I'm sorry, I'm just arranging my Zoom windows here. And you've got a lot of new things to learn, and just like we did with this is how with Project 4 we found it valuable to sort of work with the code here in class. I'm going to do the same thing here for the Android code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our the application that that sort of full application that came out of the box, and I'm going to evolve it into a a simple calculator application. I'm going to have it have a screen that gives you the ability to add two numbers together, so you can input the number and then add them together. And along the way, we'll learn about how to how to work with Android widgets. We'll learn about moving between different activities. Time permitting, we'll also learn how to pass data in between activities and then persist it out to disk. Quite a lot. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how much time it takes. We'll see how we all feel along the way. And want to be sure to pace ourselves so that we can pay attention. So let's see here. Let's dive in. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the application to sort of see where we're at, remind ourselves where we go. So it's running the Gradle. Kind of slowly. It's the first build of the night, so I'm sure there's lots of caches and stuff that still need to be populated. I'll bring up the emulator right here. I think that was it from last time. Yeah, the emulator is still doing its thing. There we go. Now it's up. And again there. Cool. Okay. Brand new fresh device. There we go. Here's what we've got right now. We've got an application. It has this fragment. You click next. It goes to this other fragment. You can move back and forth. It has a menu up here with settings, which doesn't do anything. And it has this little icon, which, as you'll recall, creates an appointment and then prints its toString to a toast. Okay, this is good. Everything's sort of working in the way I remember, which is nice. Now let's make some changes. So what I want to do is I want to change this next button to launch a new activity that will display the calculator. So let's figure out how to do that. Now, oh, and I guess one thing I want to say is that out of the box, this activity uses fragments, which are fragments are nice and they have lots of fine properties and things like that. But they're a little advanced for what I think is necessary for this kind of project. So I'm going to eventually get rid of them after I create this new this new activity. And speaking of creating new activities, now as you'll recall, there are multiple parts to activity. There is this Java class, which has all the logic for handling the life cycle of the activity, so responding to events like on create, and then setting up the event handlers for the various widgets inside the activity. And then there's also these XML files which specify the contents of the activity. I'm just going to go out to design mode because it slows things down for a moment. And it talks about, and so it has things like the all the widgets, like a floating action button and a toolbar, all that kind of good stuff. And I think what we modified last time was this content. Oh no, this is the thing about the fragment. So I think we ended up playing with fragment first and fragment second a little bit. Well, I want to create a new fragment, and the easiest way to do that, though, is to let IntelliJ do some heavy lifting. And so you can say new, sorry, I want to create a new activity. And I'm just going to create a new empty activity. And I'm going to call this calculator activity. It's going to okay, it's not a launcher activity, but I want to generate a layout file, put it in the package, and have it be in Java. That's great. So Android Studio does some work for me. I am so appreciative. Let's see here. There, it just created a new calculator activity. It's still syncing in progress. How come I don't see that in the place that I expected? Oh, it just hasn't shown up here, I guess. Okay, Android Studio is doing its thing. So now that it's added this new activity, it's rebuilding the project. And basically what this does is it creates a very simple activity that has that overrides the onCreate method to first of all invoke super onCreate, and then it sets the content view. And here again, these are the widgets that that are rendered when the activity is, or the widgets inside the activity. Go, build model, take that sweet time. I also have IntelliJ running. I'm going to click this to see if that makes things any faster. What else do I have running? Got Slack. Too much space. Let's go back to Studio. Wow, when it syncs its Gradle project, this is its Gradle project. Okay, now things are a little happier. So now there's a new class over here called Calculator Activity. There's also a new layout. So the layout has nothing, basically. There's very nothing, nothing here in the code. So then let's use the designer. Actually, I'm going to see the code right now. Let's use the designer to add some widgets. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and take that with too much. And so let's see here. I'm going to add text view. Oops, I want to zoom a little bit. There we go. I'm going to get rid of this down here. There we go. Let's see here. So text view right here. I think. I was thinking about it. There we go. Text view, although what I really want is, this will be, okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have, well, a text view, I'll rename everything later, and then just a, what am I naming? Okay. No, okay, I'll just put a couple of things here. I'll have a text view, which is one operand. Then I'll have another text view, which is just going to be the plus. Let's see here. So can I just type in here? Text is going to be plus. There we go. And then another text view. And they're going to have a button, which is going to perform the operation. And that button, its text is going to be not button, it's going to be equal sign. And make it smaller. Why it's a purple background, but whatever. Oops. There we go. And that's going to equal another text view, which is going to be the result. Okay, well, let's just see. So I used the editor to do all of that, and it went and then it's populated this code, and there are some things that it is telling me about this. So then, what kind of errors does it have here? Oh, missing constraints. Well, cool. There's a couple more things though that I want to change about this. First of all, I don't want this to be called text view. I want this to be called left operand, and then the text. I don't really want this to be a text view. I want this to be an edit view, edit text. And I'll change this thing to be an edit text also. The text here, I want this to be a plus. I want this to be tools.txt. I want this to be Android.txt. Here, I don't want there to be anything in it initially. And then here, I don't want there to be anything initially either. Now, just to be clear, so this design mode, actually, I'll just do the split here. Over here on the left, this is the XML that describes what's being rendered over here. Oh yeah, it's like all sorts of like stuff has gotten messed up now because I've changed some things. And so then I'm just going to have that initially say sum, so you can see it more. So here I am laying everything out. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see it even better. Oops. There we go. And so this is the XML that ultimately will get checked into the repository and everything like that. The check came in. Okay. Oh, Android Studio also really slows down my computer. Yep, it does a lot of work for you. Okay, so here is this. We sort of got this working here. There are some errors. It's talking to us about some things. So let's see here. Oh, someone just came off mute. Do you have a question? Not sure who that is. Maybe Matthew. I'll mute you. There you go. Okay. So it's going to ask for some constraints, which means that, well, actually, I'll show you what that means shortly. So here we are in the WYSIWYG editor. Great, we've got this activity, and the activity has some widgets on it. We are then, but we haven't done anything with this activity yet. So let's go back to our main activity. So I want to go through and change some things. So on the on-click listener, that's on that fragment. I guess I want to have a new button on the main activity. So instead of using the fragment, I want to get rid of the fragment actually. So let's see here. We can leave the toolbar, but like all this configuration and all that binding and everything like that, probably not too interesting. So I'm just going to blow away most of this stuff. And well, actually what I'll do first is I'll add the new button that launches it. And so I'm kind of going at it. So our main activity, let's take a look at the design again. I'm going to want a new button here. So let's just go back to full design mode. Let's just put a new button. Oh, it's all the way up here. Right. Over here. Okay, cool. And oh, I can't. Okay.
It's constrained to activity. Oh, it's constrained to fragment. So activity displays fragment. So if you want to add that, you have to go to first fragment and add it there.
Yeah, see, I want to get rid of the fragment. So I'm just going to do that then. That's fine. Yeah, let me just get rid of the fragment. Show code. Oh, actually, probably I just want to put it in content main, don't I? That's probably where I want to put it. Yeah, delete this fragment here. So instead of this thing, well, maybe I can just put it here and then. Oops, man, the zoom is way too sensitive. I put a new button here. There we go. It's better. Yeah, we'll call this launch calculator. Eh. Probably ultimately isn't what I want, but I'll demonstrate it that enough. Okay. Well, so let's run it again. See if at least we can add that button. Watch the build go by. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess so. Okay, well, it's in an ugly place, but the button is there. When I click on it, it doesn't do anything, which isn't terribly surprising. Okay, that's good. Okay, now what I want to do a couple of things. I want to, let's see here. This is telling me a couple of things. What is it telling me? Missing constraints in the constraint layout. Click the badge for detail. Oh, this tells me what it's all about. Right. So the whole idea here is that this isn't, this is kind of free floating. It's not constrained. It's not, relative to anybody. So what I want to do is I want to constrain it bottom to nethost, sure. No, that's not what I want. Nope. Constrain it up here first. No. Top to that top. And then this to this fragment main bottom, not put in the middle. Yeah, okay. So now I'm going to click this button instead, which is apply changes and restart activity, which is usually a much faster turnaround. And this works, I'd say, about 80% of the time, and sometimes it says like, nope, you got to redeploy the whole thing. But this is way, way faster. At least it historically has been. Because it doesn't actually install and reinstall. Maybe it doesn't do anything. So is this in a different place now? I think it might be.
So I
Yeah.
think it doesn't have left and right constraints, so it just doesn't know where
Oh,
it's
yeah.
supposed to be located at, and it just puts it to the left.
There you go. Now it'll put it there. Right. And then all that is reflected in the code. It's not using that, so I'm just going to convert it. Okay, oh, and now button, it says it's happy. This is cool. So right, this is what you need to do. You need to put constraints on it and tell Android, here's how I want to get laid out. And let's see here, it's also complaining about this text, and I will fix that because it's like, hey, this is hard-coded text inside your XML file. Don't you want to use a string resource? Of course I do. And luckily, IntelliJ makes it really easy to extract these string resources. And so, yeah, we'll just call it launch calculator with that value. We'll put it in the main source set in strings.xml. Sure. Nice. And what's the other thing it's complaining about? Oh, fragment. What does it look like here? Place with that. I don't know what that means. I don't even want this here anymore. I'm just going to take it out. Oh, it doesn't have this anymore, but that's all right. And this is the nice thing about Android Studio is that it does tell you, it does give you a good idea. Ugh. And I don't want. Oops. I want to turn that into one of the springy ones, darn it. Come on. Constraints. Yeah, okay, let's do a second thing. Oh, the springy one. There we go. Now it's in the center. So you can read more about this in the lecture. But the whole idea here is that when you have a widget, you want to constrain it. You want to position it relative to the other widgets around it. And so now what we've just basically just done is that we've put it through constraints such that it'll be equidistant from the edges of its container, of its parent. And so then we use the visual editor to do that. And now when we launch it, we should see that it is in the middle. Oh, didn't like something. Oh, right, good point. So I took that out. I will take all this stuff out because just all this stuff like this. See if that helps. And then support navigate up. Nah. I don't think it'll be all that. Redeploy. Okay, that was happy. Oh, okay, so, oh, right, okay, we added a resource, and that requires that the application be reinstalled. There are some changes that you can make to your application that can't easily be redeployed, and so that is one of them because I added new resources. Yay! Now we have the launch calculator. Still doesn't do anything. We click the button. There we go. But we'll do that next. Okay. Now let's start using this stuff. So we're going to have a button which we're going to call launch calculator. So now here we are in when we're creating our main activity. And now we're on the onCreate, which is this is what happens when the activity starts up, when the activity is launched, and this is when you configure all of the widgets to respond accordingly. So we're going to say, let's see here, find view by ID, and the ID, the arg ID dot launch. Oh, I guess did I not give it? Did I not give the button an ID? Let's go see. So here, oh, button 2. That's not a very good name. Let's call it launch calculator. So this is again explained much better in the lecture notes, but the widgets and other things can have an ID, and so this is an identifier that is universally unique within the application. And so when you are referring to widgets, you do so by their ID. And so then in the XML, you have this button, and you give it an ID. All the IDs begin with plus ID something or other. You can reference IDs within that. And I don't know if I'm going to have an example of that or not. But when you have an ID that begins with the @ symbol, that allocates a new ID, and it tells Android that, yep, this is a new widget that I'm creating here. And then all of this is compiled into this magical class called R for resources. And so then here in your Java code, you can reference the R. And so the R has an ID field, which then has a bunch of references, including launch calculator. And so it's actually just an int. This is the unique ID for it within the application, but then you reference it this way inside the code so that you know what the heck you're talking about. This will go get a reference to the button object, and now you can interact with it. What we're going to do here, is we're going to set the click listener. And by the way, this button object, so let me just, I can, here are all of the method. Oh, I made a mistake. Here's all the methods on it. And so things like, well, let's go down to this, the get and set. So there are all these properties: accessibility delegate, alpha, animation matrix. I don't even know what all this stuff is. Autofill, sizes, stuff like that. These are the same things that the Android Studio makes visible here when you, let me just go back in design mode. Over here on the right, all these properties, like scale X, scale Y, translation, all that kind of stuff. These are all of them over here on the right are just the properties of all of the button Java objects. So like, well, for instance, there was alpha was one of them. And so then, alpha, right? There was this, you can set that same thing here in Java. So at the end of the day, there's not a lot of magic going on here. You have Java objects that represent all of your UI widgets. And when you are configuring the UI widgets, you can do so in the XML file, which is nice and convenient because it's easier to read. It's not Java code, and the tools can work with that very nicely to then render that editor view of your button. And of course, then that works for kind of good. This. So here I want to set the click listener, set on click listener, and then click this one here. And so when this thing is clicked, I want to I want to eventually launch the other activity, but let's just make it toast first, just to make sure that everything's working. The context will be the outer class, and so that'll be main activity dot this, and then the text will be launching calculator, and then the duration is toast dot length. Let's do a long one, and then show toast. And so now I think I can just simply do a redeploy. Want to change it? Oh, darn it again. Did I create a resource? Okay, well, I'll take your word for it, IntelliJ. You know better. I'm sorry, and I call Android Studio IntelliJ because it's all the same thing. And I talked to my IDE, so I'm good. Now clicking on that button works. Okay, great. And being very deliberate about sort of like, just like with test-driven development, like make a little change, you can try it to make sure it works. I do the same thing with Android development. And by the way, there are techniques for doing test-driven development with Android, but I think where everybody's at right now, including myself, let's just do this way. Now, what I want to do is when I click on this launch calculator, I want to show the other screen that we create. I want to show the calculator activity. I want to show this thing right here. The way you do that is you launch a different activity. And in Android, the way you launch activities is through something called intents. So, which is like, I intend to make an action. So let's see here. Oops, how do I? So what I want to do? Oh, there was the API reference. So actually, that's what I wanted to look at. I wanted to. They used to have a really nice way to search for various things. What does the Java doc look like these days? Yeah. Okay. I guess I can search for intents. So Android has really great documentation, but there's a lot of it, and it takes a long time to load. So intent is a class it's a Java class, and this is basically a way for your application to say, hey, I want to do something else. I want to display a different screen. I want to perform some operation. It's this really nice generic way of expressing, well, an intent. It's like, please go do something. This probably isn't the best documentation to learn this stuff, so let's see if we can find something better. Let's see here. Reference. Let's say intents. Common intents. Let's see here. This might explain it a little bit better. Yeah, okay, good. So then I go to this page, and this is where I can learn all about how to use intents. And while this is covered in the lecture notes, this is sort of the information that underlies all of that stuff. That's for Google Voice. That's neat. So the whole idea here is that, hey, I'm in one activity and I want to do something else. And there's a way that you can, there are two kinds of intents. I think it's called implicit and explicit. An explicit intent is like, hey, go launch this activity. Go do this specific thing. But there's also something called an implicit intent, where you can say, go play some music, or go send an email. Now, the application doesn't really care how you send that email or how you play that music. They just want to go do it. And this is the cool thing about decoupling your apps. And so then it allows the user to say, well, hey, I want to use Gmail to open to send an email, and it'll open up the Gmail app. Or for playing the music, it's like the phone knows, okay, great. I play this MP3 in the background, and it goes and does it. And so intents are really neat like that. So now what I want to do when I click my button in my main activity, I want to have an explicit intent off to my my calculator activity. So the way to do that is I create an intent, and this will be a new intent. And let's see here. It's got a whole bunch of things, but what I want is, let's see here. I want the context, the package context, which I believe, again, is the main activity. This. Yep, and then I want the class to launch, which will be my calculator activity. Our class. So I have my intent there. It's like, that's what I'm going to do. And now I want to say start activity. Activity, yep, and give it and the intent. And I believe that does it. So let's see here. I'm going to try to launch it again the fast way. Let's see if this works. So this is just a different programming model, right? It's this kind of abstract notion of like, okay, I'm going to go do something with one of these intents. The intent not only needs like, here's where you're going to, but it also needs to know the context. It's like, okay, and here's where you are, or here's where you've been. And the Android runtime keeps track of all of this stuff. So it knows where, because it has to manage all these things. Because as you learn about it in the lecture, or as you learned about in the lecture, the Android runtime is responsible for tearing down data when it needs, or tearing down applications when it needs to free up system resources. So now when I click Launch Calculator, hey, it launched something else. It looks really ugly. Okay, let's go fix that. But look, it did something, and I can go back to the previous activity, which is neat. Yeah. Okay, let's go back and fix this. As you probably guessed, we need to go put in some constraints here. So let's do that. Right there, constraint there. Oops. Really? Did I lose my constraint? Oh, there, so got it.
Is there a way to like auto set constraints so you can just say set constraints for where I am right now or something like that?
There might be a way to do that. And actually probably what I'll, yeah, I might want to try something else here in a moment because I'm not feeling super good about this. I mean, like, why
There
is
should
it?
be a layout,
Yeah,
like a vertical and horizontal layouts that you
that's
can
what I
just.
think I'm going to have to go with because I'm just not happy with the way this is looking at all. Yeah, look, it's doing like some like relative to the other thing. Yeah, I think forget this. I mean, the editor let me see the way I want it to look, but that's not the way I want it to look. So I'm going to use instead is something called a layout, which is just another object. So I'm going to use something called a linear layout. And let's see here, match parent, please. And then I'm going to put all of my widgets inside that. And then, it puts it all up there, and they're all a mess. I'm going to get rid of all of these constraints. Yeah, that was going to do all that. Oops. I really wish it wouldn't put the... Okay. So yeah, we'll just get rid of all this stuff. So this is what I find myself doing, sort of going back and forth between the the WYSIWYG tool and the XML, because the XML just makes it super obvious like what it's doing and how it's been configured. So I'm just going to that, taking this out. What does this look like now? What is it? Nice. Maybe hash parent isn't what I want. I think I want this to be content. And then this thing probably needs to be constrained. So that's a constraint there, did it? Okay. Then Android. No, they're all margin nodes. Constraints. Things. Okay, well maybe now here I can use the editor to make that a little easier. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm laying out the I'm putting the constraints on the linear layout instead, right? So the linear layout is different from this edit text that's inside it. Yeah, super ugly. Now let's see how that looks. I will relaunch the application. Oops. I must have something. Oh, yep, that's true. I left this garbage in there. Applying the changes. Now I'll launch the calculator. Okay, that's still a little bit ugly, but as you can see now, we've got. So I don't want that button very much. But you click on the field. Now it brings up a keyboard. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of neat. Let's make a couple more changes. I don't want this to be. I don't want to be able to put letters in here. So one of the things that you can do with edit text is that you can. Let's see here. And actually, let me just look up edit text. So I basically want to say this edit text can only be used to edit numbers, and there is a way to do that. Let's look at edit text. It's right here. This is the it's the reference, the page for edit text. Number. Whoops, where is this? Number. Oh, input type. That's what it's called. So I can specify the input type. Android. Yep. Input type. And you've got all sorts of things, phone numbers and autocorrect and cool stuff like that. I just want a number, and I'm going to let's see, extra text there. And I'm going to add the same thing to this other edit text. Android type. Sorry, data type. Input type. Input type equals number. And now when I reload it, right there, I'll launch the calculator again. Now when I type this in, oh, now I only have numbers. That's great. Okay, I think I'll make these a little bit wider. Let's see here. I want the edit text to be, let's see, can I search for, if I have the left operand, can I search for, there's a way for me to look at, easily find width. Min lines, mid width, I think it's like max length. Max length, I want min length. Min lines, min ends. So let's see here. An M is the width of a character, so I don't know, maybe say 5. Does that change something? Oh, that makes it a little brighter. That's nice. Okay, I'll do the same thing for the, oh, that's left operand. Now I want to change the other one to this, which is, I want to rename that right operand after I set this to be 5. There it is, and I want to call this, call that right operand. Yes. Cool. I don't want to call this button anymore, so let me here. I want to call it operate or perform, I guess. I'm going to call it add. There you go. That's a good name for it. And yes, please. And then I'm going to call this instead of text, I'm going to call that the sub. Actually, I need to make some kind of wide too. So that is going to be min ends, which I want this to be 6. Okay, let's see what I do. So why is this button? There's a way to center the text align. I wonder what it's called. Transition. It's a text alignment. There we go. Center. Is that? No. Why is the button? Huh. That's interesting. Right, because the plus is over there on the left. Is the widget wider than I thought? So let's go look to see what is in the code. Layout margin and that's a little weird. Does that look a little better now? Maybe? It does. Now I want to make that thing a little wider though. Okay, well, I probably would want to add some padding and stuff, but let's see here. Android. Width equals, I don't know, 4, yeah. 4, 8 equals 20. Okay, and then Android, I think it seems to be text alignment. Text alignment equals center. There we go, now it's looking a little better. Okay. Oh, cool, and so I just spent a little bit of time sort of spiffing things up, so it looks a little nicer, and like the sum, I'm not super happy with that either. I don't think I need sum here, but I want to make this so min m6, that's fine. But I also want to make it uneditable. So let's see, what do we call that? Editable equals false. There you go. Now you won't be able to click into it. Yeah. Oh, just a little polish here. Oh, what? Oh, okay. Fair enough. It's a text view, right? And isn't it nice that IntelliJ tells you that, right? You start keeping things clean. Okay. So now let's launch this one more time. See if we get something that looks a little better and behaves a little better. So there's rebuilding. Okay. Oh, and yeah, I renamed some resources and stuff. Okay, fine. Yep, this looks a little better. Oh, interesting. No, I guess that's okay. So I've got numbers there, and yep, I can put numbers. And I tried to type some letters before it didn't work. Let's see here. Is this a button? Oh, interesting. It's not acting like a button. Oh, maybe it is. Just I don't have a listener hooked up. Okay, nice. Okay. Oh no, equals the button. Hey. Cool. Okay, this is looking pretty good. So I'm going to commit this, and because things are working. I've got a bunch of warnings though. What doesn't it like here? Oh, interesting. So then this lets you is saying, hey, shouldn't you have some hints about like autofill? And it's like, no, this doesn't have an autofill value, and this doesn't have an autofill value either. What about anything else that I was complaining about? Oh, label for. Yeah, this doesn't have a. Oh, interesting. It's oftentimes with like an edit text will have a label for the text. And we can just ignore this. Okay, is that edit text happy now? It is. I'll just do the same thing down here. I won't do that for this. It's also complaining about how there's not a resource for that, so I will call that plus. Put it in that. Same thing for this. I'll just call it equals. It's got one more thing it's warning about. Okay, it's all happy now. Great. Okay, one more time. I think I need to do a full deploy this time. I changed things in the resource. While that's happening, I see there are a couple chats that have come in. A couple questions. Oh, people asking about, yep, things there. I don't see my numbers when I type them in the edit text views. How do you set the text color in text edit? It just came that way, the color anyway. Oh, view's too small. Okay, good. Glad you got that figured out. Okay. Now let's try it one more time. That is, that's looking good. There's my numbers. Sweet. Okay. So now we've got all of that. Let's then, let's commit this, and then let's take a break. So let me just show you all of the files that changed. There are a lot of them. Oh, this REST client, that is not part of this project, and I don't remember what I changed there. What did I change there? What parameter? Oh, right, that was the thing I was investigating. Actually, I don't want that anymore, so I will revert that change. This is not having to do with the Android project. Just want to get it. No, stop that. Okay. Let's just take a quick look at all the stuff that we changed. So I'm going to look at all of the diffs here. So here is a new, let's make it bigger so you can see it all. So here is a new layout file, a new XML file for the activity calculator. So for the calculator activity. And so it you have this linear layout, and inside that linear layout are your edit text or text view. And what linear layout does, I guess I didn't explain it to you, it's in the lecture notes, but the whole idea is that these layouts are a widget that contains other widgets, and the layout widget is basically an algorithm that says, okay, well, I'm going to lay out my children in a certain order, and linear layout is, guess what? Linear, all in a line. Left to right. And so then this is the thing that takes care of positioning all of the widgets it contains, and so that's easier than using the putting the constraints on the individual widgets. And so that has the left operand, the plus, so I should probably call it something other than text view, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to ever use it for anything. The right operand, the add button, and then the sum text view, which is uneditable. That's going to display the sum, and we'll do that next. So then let's go to the next file. Here we added a new activity, and the activity gets mentioned in the manifest. As you might recall from last time, the manifest is basically a description of all of the stuff in the all the stuff in the application. And so each activity has its own description here in the manifest. We didn't really look into it too much detail. Let's kind of need to get some of this stuff in there. We have a very simple Java class for activity. Doesn't do very much yet. We'll be modifying that next. Then we replace the fragment and with the button, and so that's all that's there in the main content for the main activity is the button that launches the calculator. Here we have a bunch of unused imports. That's nice. Here we have some changes to the main activity. We basically got rid of all of the stuff related to the nav bar that we took out, or sorry, with the took all that stuff out and instead replaced it with a button that is for launching the calculator activity, and we did that with an intent. And so the way you do that is that you say you create your intent, and then you tell start a different activity with this intent, and it'll do that as we've seen. We added some new strings, and that was it. So lots of code all over the place, but this is the way Android applications work, right? It has different pieces of code with different responsibilities, everything ranging from the strings file with lots of display strings to the XML file that describes the widgets, and finally the Java code that actually does the work when you interact with a widget. So I am going to commit this, and then while I'm doing that, I will answer a question, and then we'll take a break. because I need to. And so then added a calculator activity, which is launched by a button in the main activity. Okay, push that up to GitHub. Actually, does linear layout default to horizontal alignment? Yes, I believe so. I can't remember if it's linear layout is always horizontal or if there is. Oh, I split the text layout. Okay. Or if there is a another kind of alignment there, or it right. So if you can go look it up. I can't remember.
In the pod, there is option for either or layout. Should be available in the
Nice.
design. There should
Yep.
be an option for it.
What was it called?
It's in a palette right there, and the layouts to the left of you, left side of the screen.
The left side of the screen.
Yes,
Oh, linear layout.
there is
Oh, yeah.
layouts right there in the available widgets or available common things in the actually layouts.
Layouts.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah, linear horizontal, linear vertical. Okay, probably just configures it differently then. Same layout, just there's some setting that makes it perfect. Nice. Thank you. And thank you, Mike, and anybody else where it's like, Dave, you're going off the wrong direction, or like, I know that answer, don't bother looking it up. Please feel free to speak up. More so than the other projects, we're all figuring this one out together. Nice. Okay, let's take ourselves a 15-minute break and return at the top of the hour. I'm going to go inside, get myself a little bit of food, but we can start off with questions when we return. Okay, welcome back all. Okay, so before the break, we added a new activity to our application. This activity is launched. Oops. This activity is launched with the launch calculator button, and it shows this activity with the ability to enter in two numbers, and we need the ability now to sum them together. But before I make any more changes, I wanted to pause for questions. So is there anything that that you saw that you wondered about? Anything that to follow up on before we do more new stuff?
Yeah, I'm curious. This might have been, it might be an obvious question, but I'm still curious what the difference is between a fragment and an activity.
Fragments are just a portion of the screen on the activity. And so what I recommend for this project, unless you really want to study up on fragments and learn about what they are, don't use them. Honestly, I think you can do everything that you need to do with just an activity and having like the content for the activity, just like I'm doing here with the calculator. Do it that way. The fragments, I think, make things a little confusing.
And activity, kind of like just a new fresh window then, right?
I'm sorry, could you say again, please?
Yeah, the activity is just a fresh new window then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So while it might not have as nice a look and feel, it'll get the job done. Any other questions, Andrew? Oh, you had your hand up.
Yeah. I was wondering, since you said that you think that we should stick with the main activity set instead of using fragments, should we treat main activity basically similar-ish to the main function of a command line program?
No, that's a good question. Let me think on that one. Gee, maybe. I didn't really thought of it that way. For me, it's like it's more like the landing page in your web application. It's like you start here. So I guess in some respects, with the command line program, yes, you start there, but the user doesn't really see it as the place that you start. Maybe in the code, it does. It's like the main class. So yes, I just wonder if you think about it so much, not so much like the main function, but the main class. Like if there was a Project 5 class, then it would be the main activity.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And speaking of, if there was a Project 5 class, I have a lot of extra helper functions and stuff in the Project 4 class. So I am thinking of bringing that over, but I
Yep.
obviously won't be using it as an entry point for the program because that's not how it works. But I've been converting it into more of a controller, as I put it. Basically, that controls all the aspects that are being reused for Project 4 and Project 3 and so on. So another thing was basically, even though we're using only one activity and not really delving into using the fragments, and you even said that you were thinking of deleting the fragment,
Yeah.
we can still have multiple pages use our application main activity. We just have to implement it sort of a different way, maybe.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of what we're doing here with, here again, what I recommend, which I think is the most straightforward, is to have one activity for each of your screens.
Okay. So main activity starts up the program, but we'll use different activities. We just won't do different fragments, you think?
Right. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. So let me see if I can.
One thing that I read was that fragments might be designed the way that they are so that you can actually just like start up the program from them. Like, for example, if you're trying to share something, you might get a list. It's probably an implicit intent. If you try to share something on a social media website, you press the button and all your apps that fit that list. And then like, if it's like mail to self, it'll bring up whatever email program that is, but specifically already have like the write an email screen up. Would you guess that that's probably a fragment? Because I heard that might be why there's this whole fragment thing. Is that like,
oh, okay. I thought that'd be an activity.
That can be accessed on its own or something.
I thought a fragment was a part of an activity.
Well, I think it is. What I mean is that it's a part, but the reason that it's a fragment and activity by itself is that it can actually possibly be accessed from a different app. So it fulfills a small independent functionality that can be used and linked up with other things. I think that might be what's up with fragments.
Well, and that might be, and it's probably the right thing to do in a lot of situations. I don't think it's necessary for this. And so that if you're, if anybody is finding themselves sort of stumbling over fragments, or it's like, it's super awkward or whatever, I know that using activities will work.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was definitely confused by fragments.
Yeah, so this whole navigation thing and everything. So it means I just need to read up on fragments and figure out how to integrate it into the course. But actually, I don't want to take the time to try to figure out how to extract the fragment code out. I kind of don't want to break anything at this point. So let's just move on to stuff that will be valuable. And if you have fragments in there that are not used, that would be the end of the world. And it's going to hurt your application and just be like messaging code. Okay. So next, sorry, any other questions?
So I guess you mean the most independent windows or sections that have their own layout should be their own activities?
I think it's the easiest way to get started, right? And so for people in their second week of Android development, that's probably the right way to go.
So for example, like add appointment book activity would be the activity for trying to add something.
Exactly.
Then there'd be like a view appointment books activity. And both of those would spring off of the main activity or something.
Yes. Yep. Something like that can be launched, sort of one after the other, and then navigate between the two and send data back and forth between the two.
Do you think that there's a way for an intent to go from, for example, add book activity to go from there to view appointment book activity?
Yes, there is. And we'll see how to do that in a little bit.
So it's not like strictly hierarchical. You can go between.
You can go anywhere you want. Yep. And so then you can. I mean, you basically would create an intent for, and so maybe after you've created your appointment book, you can just have add, and then you have an add and view, right? And that might launch different activities.
Yeah, got it.
That's good questions. Okay, let's move on then. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to implement this equals button. So like when you you have 2 plus 2 is equal, and sorry, 2 plus 4 equals 6. So then let's add that here. And so now we have logic. We have adding two numbers is the logic. And so then what we need to do is we need to register one of those listeners, the quick listeners, on the button. So we'll do this thing again where we get our add button equals find by view by ID, r.id.add. Yep. Maybe I want to call it add button or something, but whatever. I've got to import that. And now I'll say add.set quick listener, on quick listener, on quick listener. Actually, can you use lambdas? Maybe you can. Okay, that'll be neat. And so what I'm going to do, I could add all the logic here because there's not a lot of logic, but I think I'll create a method. I will call it add operands and display sum. I'll create that method, and I'll create a calculator activity. And I'm going to replace this with lambda. That's kind of nice. Okay. And so now here, what do I want to do? I want to get the left operand will be an edit text. And I'm going to call it the left operand. So I'm getting the widget here, and so this is find view by ID, r.left operand. And so let's see here. And then I will also say edit text right operand. Oops. Let's find view by ID, r.id, right operand. Okay. And then let's see here. I think left number. Well, actually, what do I want to do now? Just to be wants to be a double because it's going to be a decimal. So I'll have that be double dot parse double, and then I'll say left operand. I see here when it comes to getting the string, I think you just say toString, which is kind of neat. So you get that. Oops. And I'm going to do the same thing for the right. And then I'm going to have a double, which is the sum, which is going to be left number plus right number. And then I'm going to get the text view, yep, which is going to be, well, actually I want that to be that there. I'll just have this be the sum equals find view by ID, r.id, sum. That's a sum.setText, setText, and then it's going to be a string.value of left up, left number plus right number. Nice. Okay, so what are we doing right here? First of all, the whole idea is that when we perform some logic, we go and get a reference to the UI widgets. So here we get a reference to our left operand named, well, left operand. And this is that widget that we defined over here in the, in our activity calculator XML. That's the UI widget. And we're getting this reference to it sort of at runtime. And at runtime, it's been, it's got a value in it of some sort. And we get that value just by calling toString. So that returns the string that is in the edit text. Remember that even though we configure this particular edit text object to only allow numbers, it can still hold any text. So the API just gives you whatever string it has in it. We'll convert that to a double, and that'll give us a little d double. We're just using Java APIs here, right? Nothing particular magic about it. Then we'll get those two numbers. We will, and we want to display their sum. So we get then the reference to the widget, which is the sum widget, right? This is this plain old text view here at the right of our linear layout. And then we want to populate that text view with the sum of those two of the left and the right, and we compute that by calling string.value of the sum of those two, and then we call set text, and that'll display the text. So the interesting thing here is that in response to this click, what we then do is we access the UI objects, we get the information we want, we manipulate them the way we want, and then it'll all get displayed after this method returns. So let's go deploy that. Oh, install and start. Change I made to cause that, but that's what it's supposed to do. I'm not going to argue with Android Studio. Click launch calculator. Let's put in some numbers. That's one feeling. There we go. So 4 plus 3 equals crash. Okay. Oops. What didn't it like? Interesting. So I'm going to look in the log. Does this have anything here? So logcat is the let's see here. Error? No, unknown send runtime flag, but that was just a moment ago. I don't know what that means. Any words? Interesting. Okay, let's try debugging it now. That kind of surprised me. So the app seemed to crash. They'll probably tell me that's crashing. We'll try it again. So 4 plus 2. Yep. Oh, here again. Good. 4 input string. Oh, interesting. Okay, so toString is not the value that I want. Yeah. Okay, so logcat is the thing then that lists all of the well, the log, the system log of the app. Bennett, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I had a quick question going back to the forcing it to be numbers in the text field. As it goes, or in respects to the last couple of projects, we had to be worried about errors and different weird inputs being put in. Do we have to worry much about that in this project, or is it really just?
Yep. Well, I will say that input validation, yes, is something that you always need to do. Now, unlike the first, unlike the command line projects, you're always taking input from the command line. Here, you might be able to put some constraints on it. So if you're using something like a date picker, that'll do a bunch of validation for you, right? That'll make it so you can't, choose a month of 14, and you can't have February 30th and things like that. So yes, you need to validate the input, but you have different tools at your disposal than you have in your previous projects. Live right by a hospital, I think. Someone's getting airdropped to the hospital. Okay. Okay. Well, so left operand.toString was not the right thing to right thing to do. So let's go figure out how, from an edit text, to get the text to display. Let's see here. This is edit text right here. Context attributes. So get text. Oh, get text. This returns something called an editable and an editable. editable, I guess, is some sort of representation of content, and markup can be changed. Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's neat. Oh, okay, so I could add to it if I wanted to. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so if I wanted to set the text, or if I wanted to modify the text, I could do that here. Well, that's neato. Okay, but then how do I end, clear, delete, get filters? Do I then call toString on this? That seems like a super weird pattern, but it is. Yeah, there's not a lot of stuff here on the text. Okay. Okay then. Okay, so then get text, get toString, and get text, get toString. Okay, try this again. Oh, I need to rerun the application. Okay, launch succeeded. Calculator. So 4 plus 3 equals 7. Ooh, way too small, but that's interesting. We can fix that later. Okay, well, that seems to work. But as we just saw, if I then have, well, I guess I can't put in, well, if I set something empty, it crashes. And let's see here, am I going to get another one of those stack traces? Well, that's interesting. Oh, it crashed and relaunched, and so I lost the, did I lose the stack trace? Let me see if I can get that back somehow. Is there a previous, oh, yeah, dead. Oh, yeah, good. So I can go look at the dead process. So isn't this interesting? Right, your app crashes, and literally it's a process there running on the device. It's just like getting a seg fault or a seg fault, I guess, yeah. I forget, what do they call them in Windows? Like a blue screen of death thing back in the day. Anyway, jump protection fault. There you go. Wow, I just pulled that out of a distant memory. You know, it crashes because there was an uncaught exception. And the logcat will help you find this. And so sure enough, you know, you can just say, oh, look, here's my calculator activity. Sure enough, when I tried to parse a double of the empty string, then it got this over format exception. So what do we need to do? We need to wrap these in try catches. So let's put this into a declaration and say try and then catch number format exception. And then I want to say, actually, I want to put this, which is, I'll call that left string. I'm going to put that into its own, that. So if I get a number format exception, I'm going to then make a toast, toast.makeText. The context is this. And then the message is going to be cannot parse left operand, and then I'll just sort of say left string. Oops. And then I want the duration to be toast.long. I'll show that. Actually, I want to put all of that into its own method. So I'll put that into a variable. Let's call it message. And then I want to say, so like display error message. Oops. Oh, someone has their mute off. There we go. Sorry, so get I messed up. Sorry, I'm gonna call this display error message. and then display error message. And I'll return, because there's no use going on if one of the numbers is messed up. So let's see here, left number, yep, and let's inline this thing. Okay. Let's see, and sorry, was there a question? Looks like someone, yep, so yeah, good. Thanks, Michael, for verifying that, yeah, get text to string is the right thing to do. And Bennett, you have your hand up, do you have a question? I put you on mute, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll take it down.
Okay. Okay, so now we got to do the same thing for the right number. Let's put declaration of assignment. Try. Oops. Yeah, right operand. Okay, nice. Okay. Cool. So now let's try to run this one again. Oops. Oh, adding a new method apparently. We're sorry. Okay, requires an app instant. Okay, launch was successful. Launch the calculator. Let's make sure it still works in the happy case. 4 plus 5 equals 9. 4 plus 9 equals, yep, cannot parse right operand. Cannot parse left operand. Yay! This is what I mean by displaying like friendly error messages, right? Doing this kind of stuff. 5 plus 6 is 11. Yay! Okay. That looks pretty good. Look at my notes here. Yeah. Nice. Okay, I'm going to commit this. Any questions about what you just saw there? Yep, okay. Push. Push. Okay. So we've shown how you can have one activity launch another activity. And right now these activities are pretty independent. But one of the things that you often do, and we were kind of talking about it earlier in the context of the appointment book application, is that you have one activity create data and send it back to another one. So for instance, you might have an activity that has all of the, the fields that need to be populated, all the text fields that need to be populated for a, all the data that needs to be populated for creating a new appointment. And so then that activity's responsibility is to get all the information from the user, create an appointment, but you probably don't want that same activity then also to have to store it off to an appointment book. Maybe you want another activity to do that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to show how the calculator activity can then send the sum back to the main activity. And the way you do this is with intents, right? You're changing activities, but what you're doing is you are, sending. But in addition to the intent, like when we launch this intent from the main activity, let's go back and find main activity. Here, all we did was create the intent and say start activity. But now we're going to have a way of going from the calculator activity back to the main activity. Now we're going to send it the sum along the way. So let's add a new button to the calculator activity. So let's go to the design, which by the way you can navigate to from this little icon here in the gutter. And yeah, we want the layout file. Great. Here it is. And now we're going to add a button. Oops, come on. Get rid of this. That's annoying. The heck is it? Okay. Yes, please. Thank you. Now we're going to add a button. And let's see here. Wrap content. Sure. And now let's, what is this going to tell me? Ignore this strings. Now let's go back to the designer and get this thing going. Now we're going to have, oh, where's the button? Okay, fine. Use the hard way. We'll use the, get rid of this thing and just use the designer. Buttons, just a button. We're going to put it there. We are going to constrain it to that. That's what I wanted to do anyway. What's going on there? Do we need to constrain this? Oops, where's the linear layer? Right here. This now we're going to move to there. This now we're going to move to there. There we go. And now here we're going to move this. No. Move this up here. Do that. Weird. I swear, sometimes it's just. Well, we'll see how this works. We are going to. What's the this time? It's a constraint layout. Use our constraint layout design time. So we'll jump to, well, then constrain it. Please. Yeah, that's not what I want. I don't want absolute. I want. Let's see, a constraint end, constraint bottom of that. Yeah, that's what I want. That used to be this thing. I think I want this constraint down here on the button. And so the constrain the bottom to the bottom of the parent. And I then want app layout constrain top to bottom of the linear layout, which it doesn't have a name, so I'm going to give it an ID. Android ID equals, let's create a new one. So plus and ID slash, I think it's right there. What did I get wrong? Oh, wrong way around. At plus ID. Bottom of widgets. And then I need to do the left and the right. So top, bottom, start. There you go. Just see how that looks. And I'll see if we can about a couple of things, but just see how that looks. There, that looks pretty good. Nice, okay, so button clearly isn't the right name for this. We're gonna call this return to main, and this is going to be return to main. And I'm going to put that into a resource. Sure, call it return to main. Good, let's complain about that anymore. So now we got this button. And now in the calculator activity, we're going to do the following. We are going to say button return to main equals find view.id r.id return to main, and then return to main dot set on click listener, click listener, this thing. Now we're going to have a method. We can just call it send some back to main. And let's turn this back to main. Okay. Okay, so here's what we want to do. First of all, we need to get the sum. So we're going to put this into a field called sum. This dot sum equals that. And we store it in a field so that, we calculate it here, but we're going to store the value here. So then when we click send sum, or when we click return to main, we can get the sum here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an intent, intent equals new intent, and then let's see here, the context is going to be that, and then the class is going to be main class, main activity. So that does that. And now intent, has this put extra there. So the whole idea is that along with the intent, you can send some data along with it. This is the extra data. So we're going to say put extra, and we're going to call it a sum, I guess is going to be the name of it, and that's going to be this dot sum. So we're going to put that there. And now we are going to say start activity. Start activity is what I want with the intent. Okay. Now, well, let's just see what this does. So let's see here. I bet I need to start over for a little. It's not that slow if I do it this way. Nope. Haha, guess what? Okay, okay, added that resource. Okay. Launch calculator. Oops, no, that one's done. Oh, whatever. 4 plus 5 equals 9. Return to main. It returns to main. It doesn't do anything with it. So now we got to teach our main activity to receive the data in the intent. And the way you do that is on the following. Okay, so first of all, so this is back in the main. When you click on launch the calculator, it says, hey, start activity, go off and do this. But you want to, instead of just like starting the activity, you want to start the activity saying, hey, I expect you to return me a value. So there is a start activity. Start activity for result is deprecated. I'm surprised by that. So maybe, because I was going to use this, but maybe that's the way to do it anymore. So let me just copy it from here, and let's go see. Oops. Oh, interesting. Okay, so there are newer APIs. Okay, well, and so then what I have in the lecture notes is old. Doesn't surprise me. Things change. Component activity or a fragment. Register for activity results. Well, you are free to use this if you want. Activity result launcher. Okay. On activity result, you get the URI. Huh. This is a little different than what I'm used to. Okay. Well, I'm afraid I don't have. Oops. I'm not going to take the time to figure this out right here and now in front of everybody. So, yeah. So then I'm going to do things the old way. And so what you need, and it's okay if you do it too, it's okay to use deprecated APIs. So they still work. So start activity for a result takes an intent, and it takes this, what's called a request code, which then, as you'll see, it's used to identify the data that's returned there. So the request code is going to be, well, let's just give ourselves a constant for it. So we'll call it, well, let's see here, get some from calculator. Let's create a constant here for that. And put it in main activity. And then, of course, it's going to be 42, hardy har. And oh, this thing, I don't even know if we need that. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so this basically is a code saying, hey, listen, I'm going to associate this this number, this what do they call it, code, this request code, with this intent. And so that now you launch the intent a little bit differently, and now you need to override a method called sorry, it's here in my notes, on activity result. This is also in the on activity result. And you always want to call the super method because this like takes care of some bookkeeping and stuff like that. I want to say the following. It basically says, oh yeah, request code. Was that the request code or result code? That was the request code. So then if request code equals get some from calculator, nice, then we got our thing. Oh, the result code also has, there's a way, sorry, there's a way here when we start activity, is it actually just start activity? No, there's a different way of doing it, isn't there? Thought there was a way to set the code. So say yes, is there a return? No. Yeah, we'll try this. I might do the hide again. Excuse me. And the request code is that if that is that, we can also send back like an error code, but we'll get that later. And then we'll look at the intent that has the data. So then we will say the following. We will say double sum equals data dot get double extra. And the name will be sum, but let's put that into a field. So then this would be, put that into a constant. Actually, wait a second. Extract constant. There we go, and we'll call that some extra sum. Extra sum. And then back in our main activity, we will say calculator activity dot extra sum. Unfortunately, it's got a default value, which is a little lame, but okay, fine. And then let's just make a toast to say, and then receive the sum of sum. So tip dot long and show it. Which doesn't like here. I may produce, okay, a null pointer exception. I don't know if data will be null or not. Data not equal to null. Oh yeah, because it's nullable. Okay. Neat. Okay, well let's give this a try and see how it works. So this is how you pass data back and forth between activities. You attach some extra information in the intent. Every time. You attach a little bit of extra data to the intent, and then the intent is delivered to this on-activity result. Launch succeeded. Launch calculator. 4 plus 2 equals 6. Return to main. Nope. Okay, let's debug this and figure out why. An activity result, start activity for result. I think I'm not starting the activity correctly. I think that's my problem. So let's put it in debug mode. Yeah, I bet that. And I'm also going to put this over here. I think, you know, I think this is called the start activity is the wrong thing. Okay, the debugger. Yes. Debug. Is imaged. Could not connect the remote process. Debugging. We'll try it again. Calculator. 3 plus 4 equals 7. Main. Okay, so let's see here. This dot sum equals 7. Intent that has extras. And extras is 7%. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to continue on from that. And then, yeah. And then the main activity, this is never input. What is. Ooh, go away. Yeah, this is like a bug. Okay, so then, okay, this isn't being invoked. I'm going to go look at the lecture notes now, because I have clearly forgotten the API. And let's see here. I think it's all in this yes bundle. Start activity for result. Oh yeah, sorry. Set activity invokes set result with an int. Okay, I don't think. Let's see here. Okay, so then I didn't call set result, and maybe that was why. And I think it's result okay and result cancel, which is then passed into. Seriously, that is super obnoxious. Why do you have that there? Yeah. Okay, so then here in the calculator activity, before we call start activity, we need to say set results, and the result code is sorry, so it's result okay. Yep, result okay. Now we start the intent, and I believe that result okay will be passed in over here as the result code. So as long as the result code equals result okay and plus code equals that and the data is that, then we'll do something. We'll give it a try. Okay, so let's see if we can debug again. Calculator. 4 plus 3 equals 7. That's nice. Okay, start activity. We set the result code. We'll continue on. Nope. Still doesn't do that. What am I missing? To me, my notes. Start. Add start. Oh wait, maybe I'm calling start activity 4 result in the wrong. Yeah, I think I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. I think I have that backwards. It is. What if this thing is the this and is calculating activity dot. Nope. Sorry. Main activity dot. Oops. I had a constant for that. I think what I want, sorry, is get something calculated. I want that. There. Yeah, I think I want that. It doesn't work. Well, then make it public. Okay, sorry, the other way. Right, I think it's the other way around. It's the when it starts the other activity, it's like, oh yeah, here is the activity code. So once more with feeling, and you know what, this probably is explained very well here in the Android. So there's activity for results. Well, anyway, let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, then I will. Nope. Okay then. I'm getting a little fuzzy. I need something to drink and a little bit more to eat. It's time for another break. So let's take 10 minutes or so. We'll pick up there. And meanwhile, I will go figure out how to get this to work. Okay. Oh, it's a little bit more to eat. Have my energy back up. And as Matthew mentioned in chat, we I had things close, but I was wrong. There was something important that we need to do. So when you send the sum back to main, even though you create the intent, put the extra data in there, and you set the result, you set the result in a different way. There, I forgot to look. There is when you set the result, you can also include an intent there. Intent. And actually here, you can just have an empty intent. You don't need to, doesn't actually launch anything. It basically says, hey, whoever launched me in the first place, it's, the result of this was okay. And you call finish, which is, which simply ends the activity and then that's triggered to the Android runtime to then display the previous activity. And that's when the on-activity result will be called if you then call the start activity for result with the request code, which was something about something calculator. I believe this will work. It's a matter of calling the right APIs in the right order. That's all programming is, right? Calculator. 7. Let's finish. Yay! Now we're back on the activity result. Good. Okay, and so then what was passed in was the request code of 42, the result code of -1, which was the OK, and then the data has extras. Look at personal bundle data. That's interesting. 28. Well, let's see what that does. So here, I believe the sum is 7. Good. It received all that. You know, I don't know exactly how the intent represents the data internally. It probably serializes it to make it nice and efficient and stuff. And now we should see the toast. Okay, receive sum 7. Let's run it outside the debugger just to see it work a little faster. Well, it's nice and speedy now, so obviously something has gotten optimized. It was super slow earlier. 5 plus 3, 8. Receive sum of 8. Nice. Okay. Let's commit this and review what we've done. So let's look at our changes. Okay, so we added this new button that launches that. We also let's get rid of some things. Okay. Oh, no, wait. That yeah, just move some things around. I guess no big deal. We add this new button that is for returning to the main. We added that to our calculator activity. Here is our calculator. Oh, I guess we don't need this import anymore. Let's get rid of that. And so now we have this this constant for the name of the extra data that we pass back in that intent. We move the sum into a field so that we save it between the time that the equals button is clicked and the sum is calculated, and then it'll still be there here as a field in the activity when the return to main button is clicked. And so then we added this logic to say, hey, when return to main is called, send some back to main. And the way we do this is we create an intent that really doesn't go anywhere. It's just meant to store some data. So basically, like, hey, our intent is that we give you this data. And the way you do that is create an intent, put some extra data associated with it. We set the result of this activity. So this activity has a result associated with it. And then we close it out. We're done with it. Here's where we store the sum. Here we are back in our main activity. And now when we click the launch calculator, we start an activity for a result where we send in that same intent before, but now we say, oh yeah, associate it with this code. We get some from calculator, which is 42. Then we also override this on activity result, and this is the method that is invoked when the activity that it launched sends a result back, sets that result, and then finishes. And so it is delivered, what was delivered to it is the request code, which is 42, the result code, which is that, yes, it was okay, and then any data, any intent that was sent along with it. And so then we simply, interrogate that to figure out that, yes, hey, it was a good result from the get some from calculator, and there was data there, so we go and get the data out of the sum, and then we print it out. So that is how you send data between activities. Send data between activities. Okay. Here's the next thing that I want to show. So I want to augment the app to, when I launch the calculator, yep, I put in a sum, I go back, and instead of just like raising it in a toast, I want to keep a running list of all of the sums that I've ever computed. And I want to display that in a list. And I want to display it in a list here in the main activity. So now I'm going to use another widget called a list view. Let's take a look at the list view. List view. Oops. List view. Let's see what this gives us. So a list view is just a list of widgets. Actually, just a list of data. It can be anything. Oops, let's have the Java, please. Nice. And you can read all about this. So let's add this list view to our main widget. Activity, go off the design. No, that's not what I wanted. Oh, it has that content name. That's what it is. Yeah. Content name. And then let's see here. We're going to put that in a straight line. We're going to have the button, and then down below it, we're going to have this thing. Sure. But then let's add some constraints. Here, I want this thing, let's see here, to the constraint end to the top of, let's start top of, what is that? I always get confused. Let's see if we can use the design. So list view. Screen. Stuff let's see here. Can I list view, regular cycle view, screen view. Constraint. There at top. No, constraint. Oops. There we go. Now it's small. Whoa, what did I just do? I really wish I could get rid of like whatever that nonsense is. Did I set something? I'm not sure. Weird yellow band. Yeah, weird yellow band across the middle of the screen. Oh yeah, that thing. Yes. I don't know what I did there though. It's like it's showing me a diff or something. That's either I've enabled something that I'm not familiar with, or there's some sort of like string bug. Okay. So I want this list view instead to be string here. No. List view. So this is the constraint. Fix it for me. I don't want that. Constraint top to the top of this one, I want the bottom of launch calculator. Launch calculator. I want to constrain the bottom of the parent and sure, start of. That means this one I want constraint bottom to the top of this view. Actually, I'm going to rename this to sums. Sums. Yeah. Okay, I think that's happy now. Let's see what that looks like. That looks super ugly. Well, that might not be so bad. Okay. Neat. Okay, so a list view, well, it'll be easier to see it once I do it. So the whole idea is that this has a list of data elements. So, right. So that is the list view, and here in my main activity, when I create it, I need to populate it with some information. So I'm going to get the list view. Sums equals find .idr sums. Okay, and now sums dot set. Oops. So list views, is there? Yeah, right. Set views list views get their information, get their contents from something called an adapter. It's the adapter that actually generates the content but this allows you to have like separate logic that does the content generation from the content viewing. And there is a particular kind of, that's interesting, no, I just want to call it adapter. Yes. And I'm going to have an array adapter of doubles. So this new array adapter, and then double, and then great. Okay, and when you create one of these things, you need to give it some information. You need to give it the context, which is this, and then you need to you need to give it this resource ID, and what this is used for, and I explain it better in the notes, is in the lectures, is that you need to give it actually the ID of a widget that it will use to render the data on inside the list views. This is kind of a little a magic thing here. So I went and what I've found is want to use is android.r dot, I have my notes here, as you can see, layout, and then the simple list item one. Android has all these like canned little UI widgets that you can use for this kind of thing. It's a little unusual, but okay. Oops, do I need that double or not? Does that work? And now, adapter, I can say add a bunch of doubles. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I've done here is I've got my list view. I'm going to say, aha, list view, here's the data that you want to use. And it's this array adapter. And now I put the data in there, and that's what I'm going to put in the sum here. So now I'm going to, I think that is sufficient. I am going to reload my application. It's a little bit more to build. Cool. And there it's got the list. 1 over 5. Or what are we looking for? That's neat. So now the next thing that I want to do is I want to, when we get the sum, instead of adding it there, I want to add it to that adapter. So I am going to then turn this into a field, and I'm going to call it sums. Oh, oops. This dot sums. I'll call this list of sums. And Andrew, did I see that you raised your hand?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yep.
Are you going to put these changes up onto the class GitHub?
They should already be there. They're in mine. They're in the, I'll show you. They're in my summer 2020.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. Put that up there. Yep, here we go. So yeah, just 11 minutes ago. So yes, all this stuff is up there for your viewing fun. Okay, and so now when we get the sum back, we're going to say this dot sums dot add double, which will be the sum. And now, let's see, do I need to, yeah, I added a field. Shoot. Okay, like that. Yeah. Now there aren't any sums there. When I launch a calculator, I'm going to say 4 plus 5 equals 9. I'm going to return back, and there's my sum 9. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to say 3 plus 7 equals 10, and then I'm going to go back, and there's my next one. Good. Okay, so let's review what we did. We had already been passing back this sum, and now we wanted to store them, all the sums that we have in a list here on the on the homepage. It does on the main activity. We only had to do a couple of things actually to get all that to work. First of all, we had to add a new widget called a list view to our main activity. We had to constrain it so that it was below the button, and we did that. We're gradually figuring out how to use these constraints. By we, I mean me. I know it's by now, but I don't. So we added that new list view here in the what's that? Here in the main activity. In the constructor, we created this new array adapter to store all of the sums. And then we went and got the list view widget and set the adapter, associated the adapter with that list view. And now, instead of raising a toast when we receive a sum, now we just add it to that list of sums. And that displays it there in the list view because all the sums are together. Any questions about that? Okay.
I guess one question I have is, is it possible to make the entries in a list also buttons?
Yes.
List of buttons?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure if we sorry, I took a bug. Is there? I was wondering if there was a simple. Well, actually, simple selectable list item. might do it for you, and then I think you can register a listener on the list view widget to receive that. But that is a good question. Let's see if we can figure that out quickly. Otherwise, I'll
I was
leave it
thinking
as
of
an
maybe
exercise.
using that as a way to have the different options.
Yeah. That would seem like a good thing to do. So let's see if we can figure it out. So button inside a list view. Unless I do something for this. It's probably just the okay, that's not very interesting. So yeah, let's just do Google search. Android button. Right. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So you have a custom layout XML. Interesting. And then yeah, there's your list view. So you need text view and a button, right? Because this ends up being this layout ends up being the widget that is displayed in the row. So it has like a text view and a button. And now when you create your where's your adapter? Array list set adapter. Oh, you need this my custom adapter thing. Okay, fair enough. Here's all of your stuff, and it tells you this, and then you override the get view method, which returns your custom somewhere here. Oh yeah, here we go. R.layout custom layout. That's where you use all that.
Hmm.
I'll post this. Yeah, so that shows you how to do it. There might be better tutorials out there. Let's see where else post that. Oops, go to chat. Right. Oh yeah. Okay. And then yeah, Balaji also pointed out that if you just want to be able to click on it, then you can just set the on item click listener on the list view. So actually, I can show an example of that real quick. List of sums dot set on item click listener. New on item click listener. Okay, so the adapter view, don't need that. Click a view. So let's see here. I and L. Oh gosh, I don't even know what that means. So let's see here. The adapter view probably has some sort of get adapter, get item ID. I don't know if that's I. Get item ID? I don't know. Get item. That's probably what I want. Yeah, there we go. I. And I bet that object item. And then I'll just raise toast. Oops. Nope. Post make text for this. and then selected item item. Let's see what this gives us, and then toast show. Let's see what this gives us. Calculator. 4 plus 7 equals 11. Click on it. Yep, selected item 0, 11. Yep. Okay, so yeah, you can do that also. That's a nice way of doing it. So I'll add that also.
I guess maybe a simpler way is to make we're not going to have so many that you need a scrolling list. I thought I would ask.
I don't know. Yeah. No, I'm probably not going to create that many appointments because there's so many of you.
One thing that I just thought of when you showed how it worked, keyboard showed up, the virtual keyboard. Thought I would ask, does that link to the physical keyboard that is running the emulator, or do you have to move around and click on things?
Yeah, no, that's totally there. I mean, so like here, I mean, look where the mouse is, and I can type here on the keyboard.
Okay.
I can use tab to go to the next one.
It looks like it doesn't send those inputs to the virtual keyboard, but yeah, it comes through anyway.
Yeah. Yep, that is the way it works.
Is the reason that it's displaying 0.0 because all of those are doubles, whether they come in ultimately as doubles?
Yes, I guess so. It must just be how that. Must just be how the. Sorry, what's it called? The. Let's just be how the array adapter works, I guess. So maybe it knows to.
I remember you had the left number and the right number be doubles, and I think Java just by default may just display doubles with 0.0, even if
it may
effectively whole numbers.
Yeah, or I mean, or actually it's Android. They would decide maybe it's the way Java does it too. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, sun's going down. There's one more thing I want to show you if you've got a couple more minutes. I think it's something that you'll find valuable because the next thing that I want to do is I want to persist this list of numbers so that, I mean, I can stop my application. I will kill it. And then when I load it back up again, I'd really like these numbers to come back. Okay, so let's figure out how to do that. So then, this is where we get to use the file system. So then, yeah. So sumset add that, and then we'll have a write sums to disk. Okay. And so then, what we need to do when you get a file. So here in the assignment, I have a link off to, that is not the assignment. This is the assignment. I have a link off to a page, a help page that talks about working with files. Oh, here it is. Storage. So I mentioned this briefly last time. There is a real operating system there on your Android device. It has a file system, and you can access it. Because of the way permissions work, only your app, well, there's some shared storage, but then there's also a lot of storage that is only accessible by your app. And that's a good thing, right? You don't want apps to necessarily be able to access each other's data unless you're very explicit about it. And so then for the app specific files, there is this get files dir call that you can make. I think it's on the context. How does that work? Yeah, there you go. context.getFilesDir, which I think is this. So here in our method, well, this will be the I'm going to call it context.dir. Yeah, let's do that. Context directory equals new file. Actually, make them say if it's context here, is that this? Context, base context, application context, sure. And then get data. And now let's do what we all love to do, which is write to files. So then file, let's call it sums file, equals new file in the context directory. And we'll just call it sums.txt. And then we will, let's write out all of the sums. So we need a print writer. And look, it's the same Java APIs that we've been using, well, pretty much forever. New file writer around the sums file. Let's probably check this out for an exception so pretty soon. So then we'll just add to the methods and changes a lot of them. And then for double sum in this dot sums dot get. We can't do. We don't have an iterator view. Fine. Okay. Convert this to a for loop, index for loop. Yeah. And I equals 0, while I is less than this dot sums dot size. Get count. Sorry. I plus plus. And then we'll have double sum equals this dot sums dot get item of I, and then we will say pw.print line, which print one in each line of string value of string value of sum pw.flush. Not doing this right, I should put that in let's try loop. Try this way, everything gets closed automatically. Great, that just did all that. Nothing. Oh, interesting. Great. Okay, so that will go and do that. We will transfer to try catch, and then let's see here. Here, I'm just going to call this. And I'm going to call that message. So I want to use this code again, and so that I'm going to turn this into a method, and I'm going to put it in the main activity. I'm going to call it toast. Ah, the refactoring is going very well. What is going on? Andrew, I'll be with you in a moment. Oops. Yes, Andrew?
My question was first on activity results, is that just the name of the, because it says override, is that just the function that's always called if there is something there at the okay. Just thought I'd ask since
I know, right?
I wanted
It's
to
just,
be sure, you know.
yep, no,
Also,
that is, yep.
one last thing, because of the way that this activities thing works, would you say that it would be better to have the file writer be its own thing within main activity, or would it be just as acceptable? I think it should be to call the same, pretty print or text dumper kind of.
Yeah, you all will reuse your text dumper. I
Yeah.
forgot my own. Yep.
Okay.
So yes, I suppose I could. Yeah, I could have a. I could have written a. I could have put all of this logic inside a text dumper class. Yep, and
Okay.
that's
Just wanted to check
essentially what yours says. Yep.
the way that it works. It looks like that would work, but
Yep.
because of the fact that Android is a slightly different environment, I thought I would ask since
Yeah,
here I
stuff
may
like
have
this is pretty much the
permission or
same. But
something.
yeah. Yep. No, that's a very good. That's a very good question.
Like for example, maybe it would be that a main activity can only write from a class function of its own class or something, and that would be really restrictive and
Nope.
crazy. But yeah,
No, all this code I could extract that into a text dumper equivalent.
okay, that makes definitely more sense than the alternative, especially because it could have many different classes it wants to save many different things with.
Let's see here. Just restart. Now let's see here. Somewhere in here, there is a way. I don't even know if it requires that. Somewhere here, is it? Somewhere there is a way to view the file system. So, file system. It's like, is there something here? Running devices, select, yeah, troubleshoot device connections, code changes. Oh, where was that? Well, first of all, let's so launch calculator. Let's see if we can get. There's 11. Okay, let's put another one in there. 5 plus 7 is 12. Okay, so now let's. Where was that? I'm gonna complete this. And so this would be Android Studio emulator file system. Yeah, File Explorer. There. What is that? No one remembers this sentence again. File Explorer. Let me turn it out. Like device File Explorer. There we go. So that was what? Tools. What's that? Okay, see, can I remember where it was? Data, app, this thing. No, that's probably not it. Data. Okay, sums.txt right here. So if you double click on it, downloads it, and opens it up, and then, yellow text. It's got 11 and 12 in it. So that is the file that we wrote. And now let's close this. And now let's load it back up again. So after we, here when we create our activity. I don't know if we want to do it on create or on. No, I think we want to say on create. So after we do this, sums equals this, let's just say load sums from file. Put a method there, and well, and that's from file. Oh yeah, let's just say to file. To file, and then we're gonna, why is it that up there? Let's put this into a thing, which is get file, get sums file. And now we'll say file dot sums file, get sums file. And now we'll just read it in. So try the thing, and we'll have a file reader equals to file reader sums file. We'll have yes, the exceptions. Nope. That. Yes. And then we'll have a buffered reader. BR equals new buffered reader. File reader. Actually. That. We need to that. And then, oops. And then okay. And let's see here. String line equals br dot where line this is. We need to say yeah. While line not equals null. We're going to create that as a double. It's going to be a sum, which will be double dot parse double of the line. And then we're going to say this dot sums dot add of the sum. And then we'll say line equals br dot read line. There we go. And then everything is closed. I think we're okay then. And so we add methods. So we just got started. Oops. Catch the exception. Nope. Let's try catch. And then toast, which I think I can do here. We'll see. While reading the file. Oh, you know what I think we need to do? We need to make it bulletproof by non-existent. If not some file exists, then that's okay. We'll just return. I don't think so. There we go. Good. Yeah, it's back. That's a bug. Okay, try it again. One more time. Hey, there they are. Let's see if it actually works. So then we do this. Okay, and so now if I go to the app, nope. Yep. And I launch it again. They're back. Yay. So that's how you persist data. It's really quite straightforward, right? I mean, the only new thing here was that what we saw here that you use is get application context.get data dir. And everything else is just the APIs you've been working with since like week 2, right? So pretty good there. So let's take a quick look. Just had a couple of changes here in our main activity. Those imports. Gosh. So when we create our application or we create our activity, we load the sums from the file. And when we receive a new sum, we add that to the sum, we write all the sums out to a file. And we use the same APIs we've been using for a long time, right? So nothing there, nothing new there. And similar, so our load and our write sums to file, all familiar stuff. Which is great, right? You don't need to learn any new file APIs or any new APIs. They, just like the servlet API, reuse stuff from Java I/O. So does Android. I mean, Android actually uses the entire JDK, or it's most of the JDK. But yeah, anyway. Cool. Any questions on that?
Not on that per se, but I've noticed that when looking up information on Android development and stuff, and when we were making the project, the basic project, it recommended using a language called Kotlin or something. Is that
Yep.
basically just Java but tuned and enhanced for Android, or what?
It is Kotlin is a language that JetBrains, the IntelliJ people, wrote as a simpler alternative to Java, and they they've worked with the Android people to provide good support for Android development in Kotlin.
Hmm.
Kotlin runs on top of the JVM, so you don't need like a massive new runtime or anything like that. And there are some nice things about the language, but there's only one language in this course, and that's Java. This isn't a programming language course. This isn't a survey course of different programming languages. Hey, if you're doing serious Android development, definitely look into it. That'd be a good investment to make because it is meant to be streamlined. It is meant to be easier to use than Java. But I'm not going to throw Android and a new programming language at you here at the end of a class, right?
Yeah, of course. I was just asking basically.
Yep, that's what it's for.
Was literally based off of making Java simpler to use with Android, which it sounds like it is.
Yep, that is the intent. Cool. Okay, and that is everything I've got. I got through my entire checklist. And what I hope that I was able to demonstrate to you tonight is the various pieces parts of creating an Android application. So what do? We started out by making a new a new activity that had that very simple row of widgets for inputting an x plus y equals z. Then we saw how to do all the event handling, where in Java code you could here I'll just go over to the calculator activity, where when the add button was clicked, this code goes and it gets references to the UI widgets and gets the data out of them and does interesting stuff with that data. Then we saw how to navigate from the calculator activity back to the main activity and send data along the way. And then we saw how to display that data in a list. And then we saw how to write that data out to disk and read it back in again. So hopefully that gives you some tools that you can then leverage yourself for your own Android application. And maybe if you've done things in a different way, go back and see if this helps. But anyway, it's all there for your perusal, and again, it's all up on all the code I have pushed to my GitHub repository for this summer. Okay. Any questions before we break tonight? Man, I've lost my son.
One I had was sort of continuing from the Kotlin question. Do you know if most Android apps are made using Java, or?
I don't know.
'Cause
And
it
actually,
seems like that's the
there are
default that Android Studio sort of promotes.
actually Android Studio promotes Kotlin by default.
Okay.
Um,
Well, those two.
yeah, yes, and there are language there are Android Studio isn't the only geek in town. Visual Studio and stuff will generate has an Android development environment built into it also, and there I think they use C#. Right, and it makes sense, right? And because even though it's the Java language, it's the bytecode is not technically for a Java virtual machine due to copyright and lawyer things. There's something called the Dalvik fee. Well, it used to be Dalvik, and now it's Dex. Anyway, let's just say lots of languages can be compiled down to run on Android.
Yeah. And there will be the final that starts at the exact time that class lectures usually start. Will there be office hours before that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that'll be for like covering any weird problems we may have encountered, though hopefully solved in some way or another with the project, and as well as possibly some kind of review and stuff. But there will not be there are no more quizzes after quiz 6, right?
That's correct. The tonight's quiz is the last quiz, and so that all we've got next week is the Project 5, and oh yes, the end of the term survey. There is one more survey. So the survey is due next week, as is the final exam. The final exam will occur next week.
Okay. The only other thing I have is that I sent an email a while ago about the first plan of attack still not having been graded, I think.
Oh.
I thought I would remind you.
Could you please send another email then, and I'll get to the top of my queue.
Sure. I'll do that. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything.
Great. Any other questions before we break tonight?
This is kind of random. Probably should have asked this before the last POA, but with the POAs, is it any time it can be submitted up till Sunday at midnight?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you make revisions, for your POAs. That's no problem. Okay. Excellent. Have a great week, everybody. Post something on Slack if you have a question, and have fun developing Android. I hope this is a good and fun learning experience for you. I'll see you next week for the final exam. Night.
Have a good one.
Nice.